Come to Sam Ash for hundreds of exclusive holiday deals on music and sound gear from the most iconic brands. Save big on professional and starter guitars, drums, digital pianos, horns, violins, DJ, and electronic production equipment. Supercharge your home studio with deals on podcasting, streaming, and AV equipment like speakers, microphones, headphones, and acoustic treatment. Plus, with 36 months no-interest financing on thousands of items, you can get the gear of your dreams right now. From our incredible selection and service to our lowest price guarantee for over 95 years, real musicians know you only go to Sam Ash.
At Life's a Beach Realty, we're all about life on the beach. Stunning Panama City Beach and one of the most beautiful properties on the Gulf Coast, Shores of Panama. Radiant, elegant, and spectacular. Steps away from white sugar sand, every room overlooks the turquoise of the Gulf of Mexico. Come in for your tour today. Life's a Beach Realty is your gateway to Shores of Panama, the shores, and a whole lot more.
You're now at the Sports Web, a sports talk show for the hardcore fan. Bring your passion, bring your excitement, just don't bring any nonsense. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another edition of the evolution of Sports Talk Television, live here nightly on Bucks Report. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. And as we always start off the Sports Web, bring your passion, bring your excitement, just don't bring any nonsense. On the first hour of the web tonight, we'll have Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend, Mr. Al Keck. 40 years of sports broadcasting experience. I know he hates when I say that, but I have to say it. WTSP Channel 10, WFTS Channel 28. Talking about the Tampa Bay Vipers, even though it was a loss. We want to recap that, get his thoughts on the XFL product in general, what he likes and what they can improve on, and also talk about the crazy Bucks rumors involving Jameis Winston and other quarterbacks around the league. And then the second hour, we'll have newest Bucks report writer, Mr. Nick Sitro, with his mock draft. And, of course, we'll get your phone calls, 813-699-5353, 813-699-5353. And like I said, we want to get some phone calls. We'll bring on Al. You can ask a question of Al or yours truly if you want, and then we'll get you off. We're not going to have long conversations tonight on this hour, but we'll still open up the phone line if you want to use it. So definitely use it, 813-699-5353. So without further ado, here's the man himself, Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend, Mr. Al Keck. Welcome to the evolution of Sports Talk Television. How you doing tonight?
Peter, how are you? Hope you are doing well, and let's go.
Let's go. Absolutely. That's the attitude I like to hear from Al. And, of course, we'll take your phone calls or answer questions if you have any questions. And, of course, you webheads out there and you little trolls, I'm going to put you under the bridge if you troll me tonight. But definitely we welcome also the responses from you guys. But let's talk about a inauspicious Leo word start to the XFL season with the Tampa Bay Vipers. All this hype about how the offense is going to come out, and they lose to the New York Guardians 23-3. Your thoughts?
It was not pretty. And they basically had that opening drive, and Aaron Murray threw that interception in the end zone, and they were never able to really get it going. I mean, they went in spurts, and probably the best spurt that they had outside that opening drive was the drive there, I think very early in the second half when they brought in the
Quentin
former US, Quentin Flowers. And, they were just going to the run, just run. And they had better success with that. And then all of a sudden they get in near the goal line and they put Aaron Murray back in, and it just came to a screeching halt, So it was definitely disappointing performance for the Vipers. I think a lot of people expected more. They were favored to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
And when you actually see the product on the field, you wonder how they were favored to win this game. And obviously people felt that, they had pieces after, watching them in practice and whatever their form of training camp is, that they felt that they could do better. But they go on the road and just look completely out of it. Was not a happy performance at all for Tampa Bay.
And if you listened to some of the Facebook groups and looked at what some people were writing, and it was almost like watching a Bucs game last year, unfortunately. Aaron Murray, 16 for 34, 231 yards, 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles, although he got them back. But a bad turnover game by Murray. And then on top of it, the offensive line giving up 5 sacks, 7 tackles. 5 sacks in that game and 8 quarterback hurries is way too much. And I always go back to this. People laugh at me and they say you're a stat guy, but stats make a difference. And it doesn't matter if it's middle school football or high school or college or NFL or even XFL. If you don't protect your quarterback, this is what's going to happen. He's going to turn over the ball. He's going to be rattled. And it looked like Murray was definitely rattled versus the Guardians on Sunday.
He never looked comfortable. And please let me say, I've known Aaron, or I've covered Aaron since he was in high school. And I think he is probably one of the best high school players to ever play in the Tampa Bay area. The career that he had was just incredible. And he played very well at Georgia. And he played well at Georgia at a time when Alabama and LSU were just really doing their thing. But it was clear to me he just didn't look comfortable. I think I just can't help but wonder, he has not played in any kind of a game other than preseason for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And that showed to me. I know the offensive line didn't do very well, but it looked like to me in watching the game that he left the pocket a little early on a lot of throws, especially towards halftime in the second half. And he kind of rolled out right and drifted right. And maybe he can do that. Maybe he's got that option in the offense. But it looked to me like, the pocket was cleaner than what he was giving the impression. And to me, he just looked rusty to me. And my overall impression of the XFL after week number 1 is that you have players, especially at the skill position.
Mm-hmm.
And those are, to me, the skill positions are going to be where guys are going to find extra, and they're going to get on a roster here, an NFL roster here, an NFL roster there, because they have the numbers. They can run fast. They're strong. They're athletic. They can do those type of things. But the difference between NFL receivers and anybody else in the world is that NFL receivers catch the ball more times than not. Mm-hmm. And when you watch the XFL, all the XFL games, you saw a ton of drop passes, not off a guy's fingertips or not too low, and he goes down low and tries to make a really tough catch. I'm talking balls, and there must have been 6 from Aaron Murray that were right there. Not to make excuses for Aaron, but there were passes that were right there, and receivers just couldn't pull it in. And that is, I think, the calling card for some of these skill positions in the XFL is that, again, you've got guys that have the athletic skills, but in the NFL, you've got to have the athletic skills, and you have to make plays, and you have to catch the ball whenever it's thrown your way. And these receivers definitely cannot do that. And that's the difference between the NFL and any other professional league.
Good stuff. And what you're watching right now is the evolution of sports talk television. It's the Sports Web live on Bucks Report. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend, Mr. Al Keck. And it's a 10-game season. You already got one, so you've got 9 to go. You got a tough game on the road. As crazy as it sounds, because there's already been a defensive coordinator that's been fired by the LA Wildcats,
Yeah.
and Cooper Johnson. Could you see Mark Trestman and this offensive staff going to Quentin Flowers in the Seattle game and making that quarterback change very soon?
Well, if it continues to be the same type of thing that we saw in week 1. And again, here's the problem. We don't know. I mean, to me, it looked like that New York defense was pretty good. You know, is that because at this point in the XFL season, is that what the animal is? You know, our defense is so far ahead of the offenses. And really, there was only one offense that did anything in week 1, and that was Houston. And PJ Walker. Okay, I don't know anything about PJ Walker, but he played the best of any quarterback out there last week, including Cardale Jones. So, but then again, when I saw Tampa Bay lose, I wanted to see how Dallas did, because I think both Dallas and Tampa Bay were considered to be the teams to beat in this league. And Dallas looked horrid as well. So, you know, there's a part of me that says, don't make a judgment. You've got to give it the season and let these guys play through before you really see something. But again, to me, it's very obvious. The skill position guys they can run fast, they can jump, they can do all that stuff, but they can't bring in the ball. And it's not just on the Tampa Bay Vipers. That is a problem that you have over throughout the entire XFL.
Yeah, and you look at Vegas, they were saying that the Vipers were coming in with 7.5 wins, favoring Dallas. You would think that Dallas would definitely have the advantage along with Tampa, because look, Trestman has won 3 Grey Cups, didn't necessarily have the success as a head coach with the Bears with his record, but still had a very explosive offense. And a lot of people were thinking with the big time or big type of wide receivers for the Vipers that could be duplicated. It didn't show out on Sunday. And then you have the other side of this, Dallas, with Bob Stoops and some really good productive players. Being without Landry Jones, of course, didn't help out. But it really didn't come down to coaching. It comes down to, at the end of the day, it comes down to coaching, but it comes down to talent. And like you said, execution, no matter what league you're in. And it certainly looked like Dallas struggled, which I was surprised.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, I see Will Mann ask a question here saying, and he brings up a very good point. You know, some of these guys really haven't played in a meaningful football game for years, like Aaron Murray. You know, They just haven't had that opportunity. Because they've been on the fringe and they couldn't really get into real games or that type of thing. So could it be that they're rusty? And that very well could be the case. My thoughts are it was an epidemic around the league. Everybody in every game that I saw had receivers dropping balls that they should have caught. And, you know, normally, you know, when you watch the NFL scouting combine, you know, when you see the top players out there, the guys that are definitely pro prospects, they're catching everything. And then you go down and you see later on in the day when the hey yous are running routes, again, they can run and they, you know, might be able to run a decent route. But when the ball comes their way, they don't catch everything. And in the NFL, you have to catch everything. You just do. And that's a given. And if you can't, you're not going to get another chance in the NFL because they need people that can catch the football. You know, it doesn't do you any good if you can run a 4-2, and if the ball just clangs off your hands, doesn't mean a thing.
Yeah, I mean, ask O.J. Howard about that. He had a dreadful year, and a lot of people are talking about him being traded, and he has all the potential in the world. But if you can't block and you can't catch consistently, it doesn't matter how much potential you have. Basically, you're going to fail. Now, speaking of failing, do you think this league is going to fail? Because as we know, Vince McMahon put out a league in 2001. It failed. It was miserable. But this time, He's kind of put a lot more resources in it, more NFL people. You have Oliver Luck, who's the commissioner. Can you see this league working out? What are some of the good things that you like about this league, and what are some of the bad things that you think they should improve? And do you think the NFL will take some of the stuff from the kickoff, from the punt, the camera shots, the sound? Do you think some of the stuff the NFL will eventually duplicate in their league, Al?
I think they will. I think the kickoff is something that has just enough excitement for the fans, and it's something that could be safer. And if the NFL still wants to continue to keep kickoffs, I think that's the case. I mean, the only way this league survives, two things. Number one, they have to stay in the spring and be committed to playing in the spring. No other time of year, just the spring. And number two, they're going to have to very soon, within a year or two, work out some type of working agreement with the NFL. And these two sides coming together and the NFL understanding, listen, there's no way the XFL will compete with us. They're not going to play in the fall. They're not going to go up against college football as well. So why don't we embrace this and find this as the way to get our young quarterbacks? Let's say Ryan Griffin, if the Bucs really wanted to know what they have in Ryan Griffin, don't you think it might make sense if they have a working agreement with the XFL to where they can also have some of their young offensive line, some of their young offensive linemen go to this league and help protect their quarterback and just see what he can do. Yes, there is the possibility of injuries, but I hate to put it like this, but on a scale of 1 to 10, if the Buccaneers lose Ryan Griffin, the injury, that's not going to end their season.
No.
But if they send Ryan Griffin down to the XFL and he lights it up, now they know what he is, what he can do. They have a better idea. One of the downsides is everyone else will too. That could create some kind of trade market as long as he's under contract. But I think that's the only way that the league goes on, is if there is a working agreement with the NFL to essentially be a AAA baseball league for the NFL. And college football is running too many different kinds of offenses for NFL teams to really get a read on quarterbacks, offensive linemen, defensive backs. It's just too difficult. So here's a way to where you're playing a level above college football. You are playing against professional players, and you can see what guys can do. If they were to do that, and it's in the NFL's best interest, and it's in the XFL's best interest, I think that way this league survives.
So do you like the kickoffs and the punt rules? Do you also like the conversion? Because I think that's something the NFL has to look at. The kickoffs are a joke, okay? They killed the kickoff rule in the NFL. Basically, it's always a touchback at the 25-yard line. It's not exciting. With what the XFL basically put out there, it still makes it exciting, and it also is still somewhat safe. And then the punt rule. So that's where I'm looking, where the NFL could change the rules and maybe use some of that in their league. And then on top of it, you got to like the conversion, because you don't just go for a kick. You either go from the 2-yard line, the 5-yard line for 2 points, or the 10-yard line for 3 points. Can you imagine some of the offensive coordinators in the league and how creative they could be with this?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, now all of a sudden you would really have to, in your offense, really focus on plays from the 10-yard line in, not just once you get into the red zone or get near the goal line, but you've got to have specific plays for point after attempts. So, it's all about scoring points in football. I mean, that is, offensively, that is your goal, to score as many points as possible. And when you have as many, more opportunities to score points, people are going to do it. I've always been a little surprised with the way that some of these kickers can now boom the football. And if the NFL really wants to take advantage, get rid of the, violence on kickoffs, why not in the Canadian Football League, where you kick off from, and if you kick it through the uprights, you get a point, and is that something that the NFL would ever look at? I don't think they would, because if they had, I think they would have done it by now. But, think about how that could make the kickoff a whole lot more exciting when you have someone like a Matt Gay who can boom the football. And I think if he really focused on doing it, that could be a consistent point, especially after losing a point on a, point after, to be able to come back, get your act together and kick it through the uprights on a kickoff. I mean, that's what they do in the Canadian Football League. So, I mean, that's something. But overall, I liked the kickoff because it always seemed that once the ball carrier got to that wedge, he was one step away from going all the way. And that, to me, is more exciting. And again, since you're not having a 60-yard head start to pick up full steam, you're not going full speed when you make your first hit. And so, that could really help in the way of injuries, in preventing injuries.
What you're watching right now is the evolution of Sports Talk Television live nightly on Bucks Report. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend, Mr. Al Keck. Let's go out to the questions here from the web heads. And like I said, the phone line is open. So if you guys want to call in, you have a question for yours truly or Mr. Al Keck, 813-699-5353, 813-699-5353. The Godfather himself, Al Keck, tonight says Ben Cornett from Las Vegas. Thanks a lot. Ben Cornett, the troll father, says, well, man, actually, I don't have kids, so I technically am not anyone's father. And thank God for that, Ben, because if you had to procreate, we would all be in trouble. Thank you. Pound the share button for us. Absolutely. Corey says 17 team in the postseason MLB 2020 new changes. Have you heard about this? I know we don't talk a lot of baseball. We touch upon it because a lot of people say, well, this is Bucks Report, but it is the Sports Web. Have you gotten a chance to see what Major League Baseball is going to do with the postseason? And do you like what they're trying to do?
Well, what they're trying to do is get a little more interest in it, because let's face it, playoffs start in October, and that's when college football season is hitting high gear. And the same thing with the NFL season. So they're looking for anything to provide interest. And one of the ideas would be for the number one division, for the first and second division winners in each league, going out and picking their opponents, for round number one and making that part of a live TV show and stuff. It's contrived. It's very contrived, but so is so much stuff in pro sports. So I don't necessarily have a problem with it. It's going to be different, but we're going to see some really different things from the NBA soon. And that could, the NFL is not afraid to make major changes in their product. And they do it every year with, pass interference penalties and, that kind of stuff. So, hey, at this point, whatever makes it interesting, people ask me, you covered sports for all those years. Who are your favorite teams? And I always say, I don't have a favorite team. All I want are good stories. And so if it provides a good story and it makes people want to watch it, makes it interesting, I'm all for it.
All right, good stuff. Let's see what Will has to say. Aaron Murray was seeing ghosts out there. Absolutely. We talked about that. Who hired Mark Trestman? He sucks as a Bears coach, says Earl Harris III. But to be fair to Trestman, he's won 3 Grey Cups in the CFL with the Montreal Alouettes, I believe. So it's not like he hasn't had success as a head coach of the Bears. Maybe not everywhere else as an offensive guru. But if you turned on that tape on Sunday, especially when they got into the red zone, they had difficulty, even though they actually outgained the Guardians 400 to like 250. mean, the yardage was there. You could say whatever you want to. They just didn't put points on the board.
Well, it just goes to show that it doesn't matter what the plays are. You got to have the players.
Exactly.
And on opening day in New York, they didn't have the players.
No, they didn't. Willman says what? I don't know what that's all about. Drop your questions for Peter now. We talked about that. Major League Baseball changed the postseason. We answered that. Corey Brown, there's too many, way too long. Will saying, I don't know what that's about. Hey, guys, what's going on? Christopher, what's going on? Keith, Vipers beating the Vipers. I agree with that. They definitely shot themselves in the foot. Phil says Vipers need to spend some time in their playbook. Secondary looked lost too often, and their defensive ends couldn't win one-on-ones also, and that was another big key, Al, to their defense. No sacks in the game on Matt McGloin, who, look, he threw for 182 yards. He did an admirable job, but he didn't, he wasn't throwing lights out. And what really helped him see the field a little bit better was the fact that there was no defensive pressure from this defense. And then on top of it, the secondary, they gave up some big-time plays. Even Mark Trestman talked about that.
Well, it was the type of football that we've been accustomed to seeing.
I hate to say that because it makes me look so bad and like a hater, but it really was a mirror image of kind of watching the first half of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I'm shaking my head because I'm sitting here and I'm saying, this is going to be different. This is going to be different. And then it's like Groundhog Day all over again. It's not different. In fact, it's the same freaking thing. You have turnovers. You have, penalty situation. No rush at all. No sacks. Letting a quarterback do whatever he wants to. And then on top of it, blown coverage. Guys wide open. Like, where was the linebacker? Or where was the corner on that? Well, he fell down or he was in another area code. I mean, it was just too weird on Sunday for me.
Yeah, it was, again, that is football we have seen. So if the Vipers, if their goal was to play football that would remind people of the NFL, that was certainly the case here in Tampa Bay.
Yes. Let's see. Will, Al, do you think the lack? Okay, we talked about that question. We answered that. Let's go out to Phil again. Play calling in the red zone was horrible. We've seen that before. In fact, I thought of a game where I believe the Bucs gained like 500 yards and only scored like 3 points or 0 points against the Redskins. 3 points. It's exactly what they did on Sunday. Dirk Cutter's offense all over again, especially in the red zone. Can't say that about the Bucs this year in the red zone. They could cash in usually when they don't turn over the ball. 1-1 at Pittsburgh, 12 minutes left in the third. That would be the Tampa Bay Lightning, Pittsburgh Penguins. Lightning, of course, defeating the Columbus Blue Jackets last night, 2-1 in overtime. Good for them. Ethan has Penguins. I don't know why. Major League New Baseball postseason rule: the best team with the best record gets to pick opponents. We talked about that. Corey, Will, did you see Troy Aikman almost get clobbered on the sideline during the Dallas game? I did not. Did you see that?
I did not see it, but I, saw some, some posts on Facebook about it. I just didn't look.
No. And the whole interviewing thing, you've been an interviewer before on the sideline. Can you believe how many F-bombs were dropped? I mean, does that go forward? Fox and ABC have got to be shaking their head, especially ABC.
Well, what I loved about it, I loved the replay official in the booth being mic'd up, and you're really hearing what they're looking at on a replay. I thought that was fascinating. And, I would love to see the NFL adopt that. To me, if you're dumb enough to put a mic on a sideline, you got to live with that stuff. It's the same thing as if you put you take any business, you put a mic in the boardroom when there are just people from that business in that boardroom discussing things, you're going to hear some colorful language. That's just life. So if you're going there and you want you want to get the color of the game and you want to get what it's like to be on a sideline, you got to live with that stuff. And it's the way of the world. Heck, our president does stuff like that all the time.
Could the NFL do that? Could they implement something along those lines? I mean, can you imagine Bill Belichick? I mean, I like to hear that. You don't hear enough of Bill Belichick. Could you imagine the hoodie being up?
What about Bruce Arians?
Right.
I mean, wouldn't you love? I mean, would that not be the most compelling television out there?
Yeah.
If after a pick six, you've got Bruce Arians mic'd for Jameis Winston. I mean, would that not be some of the best television in any genre of the year?
Yeah.
Be it sports, be it drama, be it, whatever it is. And, I just think our world is such to where, I mean, we can't say that in front of our kids. Well, I can guarantee you our kids just aren't saying that in front of us.
Yes.
They're saying it to each other. Doesn't make it right.
Right.
But that is our world.
The music is worse. I mean, you can't even understand it, but you can definitely understand the curse words in it. So the kids have heard it. I mean, all you got to do is go to YouTube. I mean, you don't have to go out and buy a CD anymore. It's right there in the internet. Hello?
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. I'm not being the old guy on the grass here. That's what I sound like. I'm just saying. XFL came a few years late for the guy, Ryan Griffin. Griffin to the Vipers. Already we have quarterback controversy. You guys are trying to get rid of Aaron Murray and Quentin Flowers for Ryan Griffin. Look what we started. Playoffs.
Well, but you see, that's my whole point.
Yeah.
We know what Aaron Murray is. Okay. We don't know what Ryan Griffin is. We may have an idea of what we think he is, but we really don't know after all these years that he's been a backup, and the fact that he's always played pretty well in the preseason against other people's backups. So, to me, that's why the NFL has to find some type of working agreement with the XFL, and they have a team that they can give a handful of players for them to use throughout the season. And heaven knows they're not going to be playing in the NFL, but you at least know what you have.
Yeah, and who knows, you may find a diamond in the rough, or one of these players that's coming out and played in the AAF.
Kurt Warner,
right?
I mean, there you go.
Iowa Barnstormers. Who heard of them in the Arena League? He got picked up 1 year after Trent Green, who's supposed to be the starting quarterback, gets hurt in preseason. The 99 year where they win the Super Bowl out. Bucs fans remember the 99.
Yes.
Ugh.
They remember all too well. And, that's where you had that incredible combination of a guy that's got a specific talent going to a place with an offense that really fits him and getting an opportunity to play. And, Kurt Warner turned that into a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's see here. Derek says, left my ass off, Matt. Gay can boom the ball. It's getting through the uprights. That's the issue, says Derek. And of course, kicking from, 34 yards. I just hate talking about it because that still should be a win. You've got to hit the field. Okay, do your job. Anyway. Oh, yeah, it is. They're all tight in the standings, so it's building up to a good finish. And I believe they're talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning, who once again are tied with Pittsburgh 1-1. Anyone know what the kickoff rules are in the German Football League? I have no idea, Ben. I don't know why you would even ask that. But once again, Ben Cornett, Vegas. Yes.
Ben, you're in Las Vegas. If you're worried about that kind of stuff and asking that kind of question, your life is even worse than mine. You're in Vegas.
That's why he's not a father. That's why he hasn't procreated. I'm sorry. There you go, Ben. I had to do it, man. Pound a brew, then kick off, laugh my ass off.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, there you go. That's next. Everyone has to chug a beer and then kick off.
You remember basketball? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've played in softball leagues where you do exactly that, and oh my gosh, the problem isn't, playing the softball game because you're only to play about as well as you can anyway. And being drunk doesn't matter. It's leaving
the softball game by car, so.
Well, you got Ubers out there at least, and then you have that long playoff scenario. That's what I'm thinking about Major League Baseball. When they're extending the postseason with all these teams, I'm thinking that it's a postseason that's never going to end at that point. So I don't know. I'm kind of a purist, but I do kind of like the idea of going 1-2 and having them pick their opponent. You kind of wonder, the Astros being cheaters, would anybody pick them in the first round? I mean, if they're number one team at that point, you think it would be. And there's some bad news here. Cooch walked to the locker room, so that looks like an injury. Who knows what that is? Good one, Peter. Hey, by the way, judging by your left hand, you pretty much gave up your chance for kids. Hey, man, I appreciate that. I could do something to you here on this show, but I won't do it. I could definitely work my left and my right hand at this point, but we won't do that on this show. It's a family show. Das Boot, says somebody. Andrew from Canada. Al, we got a fan from Canada. Somebody said blame Canada. No, don't blame Canada because we got Andrew on here. Best head coach in CFL history, arguably, that would be Trestman. 33 shots apiece. They're updating the here we go, power play. Wow, you guys are giving us the play-by-play of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I gotta love this. The Sports Web football. Oh, great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Let's see what Ron says. Peter, I wanted to get Al's take on does he think Winston should be brought back? You knew that it was going to be this guy. And Ron, not the biggest Winston fan, but by the way, he's serving his country over in Okinawa, Japan. Here's a guy that watches the Sports Web, serves his country, and wants to ask the great Al Keck, Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend, about Jameis Winston. So go ahead. Have at it, Al.
Well, we have never talked about Jameis Winston on this show. So
never.
I mean,
yeah.
So there's part of me that wants to say, why start now? But I've made my opinion very clear that I think we now know what Jameis Winston is. And everyone has been saying, well, let's get, we'll give him next year. Let's give him another year. Let's see how he does. And we've been hearing that for 5 years. After 5 years, you pretty much are who you are. And so the question is, who do you get to play at quarterback instead? And if you keep Winston, you're going to end up paying close to $30 million a year. $30 million a year is basically going to be the going rate for a starting quarterback. Mm-hmm. So that's what you have to ask yourself. If it isn't Winston, who is it? And if you were to take a free agent quarterback and pay him around $20 million, you could certainly do more with that $90 million surplus that you have in the salary cap in rebuilding the rest of your team. Now, with that, you've got to have a front office that you have confidence in that can do the best that they can with that salary cap situation. I'm not sure that the general manager that is here is the person to do that with this team. And I've also made that exceedingly clear. So this team is going through a long process of studying every possible quarterback situation out there. The league has never seen a situation like this where you have so many big name quarterbacks that are available. It's never been like this.
No.
So, they have some options. The question is, what do they think of those options in the near term, and who do they like in either this draft or next draft or the draft after that that they seem to feel that they could get to replace Jameis Winston. And so it is a difficult situation. And when you miss on that first pick, and I'm not saying the Bucs have missed, but they haven't hit. And the Tennessee Titans definitely did miss on the number 2 pick in Marcus Mariota, and they made their choice from there. So it's a big question. And I really don't know, and I don't think the Bucs know what direction they're going to go. And do you take another year of this? If you do, good luck selling a season ticket. But then again, I don't know, do you spend money on Phillip Rivers, who's this close to retiring? Do you go out and try to get Drew Brees, who may be available, but he's also rumored to be this close to retirement? Do you throw your hat in on the Tom Brady situation? I would not wish this offensive line on Tom Brady. And so there are a lot of questions out there that this football team has to seriously look at and make decisions from there.
Good stuff. All right, there you go. We're on the Sports Web, the evolution of sports talk television. Join the 64,000 following we have here on Facebook. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend, Mr. Al Keck. Let's go back out to the webheads. The Tampa curse. Ethan says Gino's about to get his second. I think he's talking about the Penguins. All you got to do is play 18, and a lot of the language. A Lightning again. Penguins overtime 1-1. Wasn't that White Claw? They were chugging in the XFL locker room. Who knows? It could have been. It could have been White Claw, but I doubt. Is it cool to chug White Claw? By the way, I never had one, but is that cool these days?
And why do you think I've had one?
I don't know, but you're more up on the times than I am. I get well, maybe not.
Al, you're an old fart. You don't know.
Ask your daughter.
Why would I? Yeah, let me ask my daughter. She would definitely tell you I'm an old fart.
All right, let's see here. I love you guys. I got roasted by Al Keck. Priceless. There you go. Trolling contest, Corey versus Ben. I got to tell you something, Corey. Ben has absolutely passed you at this point. He's become the troll king. Corey Brown, you're like the prince or like the Joker at this point. You're not the troll king anymore. Ben is. Orlando should have an XFL team as a state rival. Ethan says Penguins. Bucks report laughing. Al should Tampa take a chance and draft Uncle Rico in the NFL draft this year? Is that a real question? Is he going to throw the ball over the mountains? Could he have done it in 1982? Really, Will? Are we asking that question? Are you trying to troll like Ben Cornette? Uncle Rico? Really, Al? I thought that was Lennon. Oh, wait, he was Napoleon Dynamite. Go ahead.
No, I have no idea. I have no idea what that is. I'm just not cool. I don't know.
I think Will, you've never seen Napoleon Dynamite before?
No, I have that. But I mean, my God, that was how long ago? So Napoleon Dynamite is not a movie that I quote a lot of dialogue from. And so,
hey, Will, man, you're an idiot. All right, there you go. Derek Jude, keep Winston. Keep the devil you know instead of going for the devil you don't. Why do they always got to be devils, by the way, Al? Why is it got to be a devil? Why can't it be an angel?
Okay, let's try. Keep the angel you know instead of going for the angel you don't.
It doesn't work out, does it? It's always got to be bad or negative at this point. Words directly from Al's mouth. So that's Derek there. Just to clarify, Pete, Tony, you and Al, I am combat veteran, but now just work as a contractor under the Marine Corps, no longer in the military. But hey, hoorah, Devil Dog. Thank you for your service.
And you did. You still gave so much to this country. So, once a veteran, always a veteran.
Yes, and I was only 2 weeks away from being a Marine. Can you imagine that? Me protecting the country. I couldn't shoot worth a lick because I was blind as a bat. Which, by the way, we'll get back to in a moment because there's a crazy rumor out there about Jameis Winston. We'll get in with our Winston watch here on the web as we always do. Uncle Rico in 2020, y'all, come on. Once again, Will, thank you so much for recognizing it, though. It's greatly appreciated. Absolutely. Damn, says Ethan. I miss when Jeff Garcia started for us in the late 2000s. Dude had a positive vibe when he was in the huddle, even with the lack of talent we had on offense. He was able to lead the group of men we had on the field. I still think
now you know why.
Mm-hmm.
You know why he was able to have the respect of the guys in the huddle. Because he had the hottest wife on the team.
Well, I mean, really,
and,
she was.
And everyone was going, man. If you could reel that in, I'll follow you on 3rd and 10.
Absolutely.
Simple.
No matter what Owen said about him, T.O. said about him, which was ridiculous. Gord, scored. The Bolts win. So Yanni Gord just broke his goalless streak, which was like 34 games, just beat the Pittsburgh Penguins 2-1. Now, if that is not meant to be for a season, and I know you look at games and you say Columbus, and then you beat Pittsburgh. Wow, big time win by the Tampa Bay Lightning. Yanni Gord, congratulations. Honestly, I think if Jameis is brought back and has any chance to succeed here, Arians is going to have to adjust his offensive scheme to play and game plan around Jameis' strengths. Arians' offense, in my humble opinion, doesn't fit Jameis' skill set. Unfortunately, Arians won't do that. We've talked about that, having more of a run game. And I'll put it out there. I do think the Bucs are definitely going to be interested in David Johnson. And if he does get cut, he should be the first call they make as a running back.
And you don't think they've already planned to do that? I mean, they've got all this stuff planned.
Yeah.
They know what to expect.
Sure.
And so, and they will. But I don't think Bruce Arians' game plan, we've really seen it, because every time we start to see something involving Bruce Arians' game plan, and it was the offense, the Bucs did have one of the top 3 offenses in the NFL. Jameis would throw an interception to end any offensive type of play right there, and that just happened way too often. So talk about drive killers, talk about momentum killers, talk about game killers. That's what Jameis was last year.
In some respects, absolutely. I agree with you on that. A 2-1 OT Lightning win. Man, BA came out of retirement to coach his team, and when now he doesn't want to be here 5 years to teach another quarterback his system, and that's what I think. But at the end of the day, if they do go with a bridge quarterback in a Phillip Rivers and a Tom Brady, then you're definitely going to have to draft one eventually, either this year, which it looks like there are some quarterbacks out there that you can develop, or in the next couple years. And I don't know how long Bruce Arians is going to be here. So like you said, I go with the devil. You know my opinion on it. I'm not going to get into it because I've said it so many times. I think you bring him back for another 1 year or 2 years. And I believe Carson Palmer, that he cuts down on those turnovers. And not only that, he gets more comfortable in that offense. And the latest rumor this week was from Jameis 101 on Twitter, who has a book out there, the Jameis Winston Derangement Syndrome, where he says Winston not only have corrective eye surgery in the offseason, but also played through a torn meniscus, which he hurt earlier. With all that being said, and him playing on a fractured thumb, do you think yourself has a change of opinion of Winston? And do you think the fans would accept that and have a change of opinion and not be so hard on the Bucs if they did sign him, with him playing through all that?
In a word?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Bottom line, Jameis is what he is.
Okay.
And he could be there in a wheelchair throwing passes, and he would still make some bad decisions. That's just who Jameis is. We've seen it for 5 years. You can't be kind of pregnant. You are what you are. And Jameis makes bad decisions, be it in Bruce Arians' offense, be it in the guy before him's offense, be it in Lovie Smith's offense, be it at Florida State. We've seen it. We saw it for 2 years at Florida State. Now we're seeing it for 5 years in the NFL. The guy just doesn't make the right decisions in the pocket. The problem is, in college, Florida State had more talent than anybody they played. So they can make up for those mistakes. Mm-hmm. That's not the case with the Bucs. And so, he's going to make some bad decisions. If you bring him back, you just have to live with those bad decisions. And that may be their overall decision, because they may believe that his upside can make up for that. I just haven't seen it yet. And, Jameis has a great upside. He does, Mm-hmm. But all I know is if he comes back and you ask me to buy a season ticket, I wouldn't do it.
All right. So with saying, if the Bucs do go on without Jameis Winston, who would you be comfortable with them bringing in? We talked about Phillip Rivers. It's official. He's not coming back to the LA Chargers. There was a report last week from former Cincinnati Bengal wide receiver TJ Houshmandzadeh, who says that it's a 0% chance that Brady goes back to the Patriots. In fact, he wants to go to a warm weather climate, names the Bucs, Tennessee, and also the LA Chargers in it, and also says that he wants to bring Mr. Big Chest himself, Antonio Brown, with him. So do you buy this? Would Tampa
Where'd you hear this?
TJ Houshmandzadeh on the herd with Doug Gottlieb? He says there's a 0% chance of Brady returning to the Patriots. You buy that?
No, I don't.
Okay.
And I mean, really, does it make sense for Brady to go someplace other than New England? Because he may have a year, he may have 2 years tops. He's 43 years old.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to throw everything behind a 43-year-old quarterback when we've seen when it goes with these older quarterbacks, it doesn't slowly go over the course of a season. It is overnight. And all of a sudden the guy can't play. Just ask, Manning.
No, yeah.
So, I don't see him going anyplace else. Who's going to pay him $30 million for 2 years of you've got no clue what to expect? The only team out there that I could see him going to, and it would be worth the $30 million for that team, would be the LA Chargers, simply because they got to sell tickets.
Yeah.
They've got this brand new stadium that right now, if the season started today, they'd be lucky to get 30,000 fans in. So that's the only place I could ever see him going. He doesn't need to go to Tennessee. Is Tennessee going to give up on Ryan Tannehill, who took them deep into the playoffs, to take a guy that they have absolutely no idea what to expect because he's 43 years old? I just don't see it. And I don't see Tom moving Giselle and the kids to Tennessee. I just don't. I don't see him doing it to Indianapolis. I just don't see it. LA would make sense because the Chargers have to draw fans. They have to sell tickets.
Right. And Houshmandzadeh was asked about Tampa, and Gottlieb said, no way. There's no way he goes to Tampa. And he's like, okay, you think so? So, look.
He wouldn't come here because the offensive line.
Right.
The
offensive line, obviously. But you get to play with Bruce Arians. You get to play with those two wide receivers. And you have no state income tax. And there's things here that play into the advantage. Again, let me ask you this. Who do you want? You're the general manager. What quarterback do you want for the Bucs in 2020?
Well, first of all, I would say, do you think with the money that Giselle makes, that no state income tax really makes that big a difference for the Brady family? I just don't. Now, state income tax, especially in New England, is quite high, but I don't think that's going to be a huge factor.
Okay.
As frustrated as I get with Jameis Winston, I do know that there isn't that rock solid guy that you can point to and say, okay, if they get him, he could be the difference. I don't think Phillip Rivers is that guy. Okay. Could Drew Brees be that guy? Maybe, but he could head south very quickly as well. Is Teddy Bridgewater that guy? He may be, but is he worth $30 million a year, with the rest of this roster? I just don't know. Now, I have seen Bruce Arians win with Carson Palmer when Carson Palmer has not been all that great with anybody else, had his moments in Cincinnati, had a couple moments with the Raiders, but he played some of his best football under Bruce, so I'm sure Bruce knows what he wants, certainly more than I and more than anyone else. Could it be an Andy Dalton? Who knows? All I know is this, is that Jameis Winston had the 8th best passing season in the history of the NFL. And with the 33 touchdowns and the 30 interceptions and more than 5,100 yards, it got the Bucs 7 wins. And so if they had a guy that was more consistent, that didn't throw 30 some odd interceptions, maybe if he threw half those, would the Bucs have won more than 7 games? And I think you could certainly make a case that they would have.
So who's your quarterback?
I think they're going to stay with Jameis. I think they will, because I think they know the upside is there more than anyone else out there. And they also know that I don't think there's anyone in the draft that, if you got a Jacob Eason, who has far and away the best arm of anybody in the draft, but arms aren't everything.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take a guy like Jacob Eason and you develop him for a couple years, he could end up being pretty good, So do you go that route with a guy that, with a Bridgewater or with a Drew Brees, if you could get them, or an Andy Dalton? Bruce knows his system a lot better than I do. And that would have to be a decision that he would have to make. But to me, if you get a bridge quarterback, you've got to be really impressed with someone in this draft that you can get, or in the next draft.
Okay. So you think they go with Winston, but you're not all on board with Winston. So what quarterback would you?
I personally am not all on board with Winston. Mm-hmm. I think that's where they're going to go, and I think that's what they'll do.
Okay.
And there's no one out there. I mean, again, my best scenario to me, I think for the good of the franchise, might be to find a bridge guy, and then if you had somebody, and again, I'm not an NFL scout, so I don't know what they're specifically looking at in the way of a college quarterback. But, if there's someone out there that they think that they could build around and develop, maybe it's going that way. Because believe me, if you go out and pay Jameis the franchise tag, essentially $28 million or $27.5 million, and then he goes out and throws for 30 touchdowns again and 22 interceptions, he's now going to want close to $40 million, because everything's just going to keep going up.
Yep.
And Patrick Mahomes will then be close to $50 million. So if Patrick Mahomes is making close to $50 million, you don't think Jameis and his representatives are going to say, we're worth 40 mil, and so that's a game you play. And as long as the salary cap, even though the salary cap will go up, with this new CBA, you are limited on what you're really limited on what you can pay a quarterback if you don't have the rest of that roster set up. And right now the Bucs don't. They think they're close, but they don't have the rest of that roster really set up. So would they be better paying Jameis a third of that, and then Shaq Barrett another $18 million on top of that, and then trying to fill in the rest of that money with everyone else? Or are you better with finding a quarterback that you can pay $18 to $22 million for? And again, do the stuff with Shaq and do the stuff with the rest of the roster and draft a young quarterback. Are you better that way in building? I can see merits on both sides, but I think they're going to keep Jameis.
All right, good stuff. We're going to have to wrap this up here because we got Nick Sitro coming on at 9:05. I want to read these questions, and I'll get you out of here because I've been keeping up late. I've been keeping up until like 11:30 midnight. And I changed the time back to 9 o'clock. We had 2,000 views last night, Al. 2,000. So
good deal.
That's a good change, and hopefully we top that tonight. We'll read some more questions. Let's see here. Peter with a gun. Neil Peart is my hero. May he rest in paradise. Let's go Blackhawks. Yeah, hate on me. I don't care. Al, in all seriousness, what do you feel about the Bucs signing Jordan Howard as our feature back with Rojo as a scat back?
Well, I think more importantly, they have to. I mean, Jordan Howard has had success in this league, just like David Johnson has had success in this league. But it doesn't matter who you have back there in the backfield. If that offensive line hasn't been improved, no one's going to really be the running back that you would like them to be. The question is, how much is it going to cost for you to sign Jordan Howard? And how does that compare to maybe a 5th round pick or someone else off the NFL scrap heap that is looking for a job? Again, they have to bolster that offensive line more than anything. And even though Jordan Howard has had success in this league, he might be the guy, but he won't have any success here if the Bucs offensive line is what it has been.
All right, good stuff. That's Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend, Mr. Al Keck. 40 years of sports broadcasting experience. WTSP Channel 10, WFTS Channel 28. Thanks a lot for coming on the evolution of sports talk television, all right?
Anytime, Peter.
There you go. So Al Keck is off. We got Nick Sitro coming back up. We'll talk about his mock draft. And like I said, the phone line's open. So if you wanted to ask Al a question, you could. If you want to ask me a question, you can. 813-699-5353. That is 813-699-5353. It's the evolution of sports talk television. Once again, we have Nick Sitro, his mock draft coming up. Want to ask him some things. And then once again, get your comments here from the web heads. Let's read some more of those comments, and then we'll get back into the show. Thanks very much. Finally, somebody speaking the truth. Says Sitton, not a big-time Winston fan, so he likes what Al had to say. Good stuff. Lovie Smith had an offense, always seemed like run, pass, punt to me. But he brings up the point, one of the best offenses that Winston was in was the cutter offense, but Lovie had some say. So what happened was there was balance to that offense. So even though it seemed somewhat predictable in his first year, it cut down on those opportunities to throw the ball. And I think that's what you have to look at. As explosive as this offense can be, you can't ask a quarterback to throw 626 times and have no running game and expect no turnovers. But once again, coming into this year, Winston only averaged 14 and a half interceptions. So I'm willing to say it was a new offense for everybody. Get him into this offense the second year. See if he's comfortable. If he's not, then you can always go a different direction. I'm just saying, I don't want to get rid of another quarterback and have him go win somewhere else. But you got to have balance to your offense. And you also have to fix your offensive line. TJ Huhala, okay. If you don't bring back Winston, Bucs sign Andy Dalton. Oh, Corey, no. TJ, who's your mama? Tom Brady washed up. That's why he lost to the Titans first round. No, he lost to the Titans in the first round because the Titans were a better team. And on top of it, Tom Brady had nobody to throw to. And then the Titans got after him. So I'm not going to put that all on Brady. The question is, can he throw the ball deep? Can he throw the ball deep in this offense? And if he can't, can Bruce Arians adjust to his talent level? Because you're not going to put him behind this offensive line and have it work. It's just not. It won't work the way it is. It won't. All right, let's see. He only threw 40 interceptions, 10 picks in his first year at FSU. People conveniently forget about that when mentioning his college career. They only mention his second season at FSU, which wasn't good. But you're right. His first year was better. He had better talent around him. But he's had a propensity, Leo Word, to have some interceptions. We've talked about it. Hopefully, once again, he can cut down on it. But it has to also work in conjunction with your offensive line and your running game. It has to. Winston or Andy Dalton? I'm not taking Andy Dalton. Sorry. I'm glad to give up whatever for Joe, considering our division is in decline. It would outweigh the cost. And, of course, we didn't get a chance to talk to Al about that crazy rumor from Dan Cilio talking about the Bucs as being one of the 5 teams that would be interested in trading. Oh, maybe we did. Trading all your picks for him. giving up 2 first-round picks and giving up a second-round pick and another first-round pick. I mean, it's just too much. What if it doesn't work out? What if Joe Burrow has that learning curve where quarterbacks throw a lot of interceptions in the first year of Arians' offense and it blows up in your face? Then basically you have a first-round quarterback, which is not a bad thing. You think you would get better, but also you've given up your future. And usually when you do that, you have all the chips in, somebody loses their job. Either Jason Light, Bruce Arians, somebody like that. So let's see. Drew Stanton, no. Once again, trolling. I think Teddy Bridgewater would be a good pickup. $30 million is good for him. You're going to pay $30 million to Teddy Bridgewater on 5 games of a body of work. You're not paying Teddy Bridgewater before he gets to the Saints. He's a decent quarterback. $30 million? I mean, again, the devil you know and devil you don't. I don't know. What about Rivers? It's official. He's done with the LA Chargers. He's 38 years old. He threw 20 interceptions last year. I don't know. Imagine Breeze retiring, Teddy signing elsewhere, and Brady being the quarterback in New Orleans. Jeez. How about no? There's a rumor out there that Tom Brady could go to the Dallas Cowboys. They would give up on Dak Prescott to go with Tom Brady? Would that work? Interesting. Jerry Jones would be willing to pay the money. Great show, says Roger Shue off of Facebook. Thanks a lot. Or, excuse me, off of YouTube. We need to fix the offensive line. I agree. And what about the kicking situation? I think the kicking situation. And our guest is running just a little bit late right now. So I'm going to bring you back on, Al, here and address this rumor. How relevant do you think it is for the Bucs to go up and trade up for Joe Burrow?
Well, I'm sure, the Bucs and several teams are certainly looking at that possibility. The question is, what do you have to give up to do that? And would the Bengals really accept that? And again, the Bengals are in a very different situation in that this is an Ohio kid. They are in desperate need of a quarterback. He is a guy that could definitely be what appears to look like a perfect fit for them. So do you give up on that with any kind of major haul involving draft picks? It's easy to say that the Bucs are one of 5 teams that have talked to the Bengals about doing that. I'm sure the Bengals have talked to more than 5 teams about doing things. Whether or not the Bengals do anything is a whole different story. By the way, I wanted to clear up something. One of your people that wrote in was talking about the fact that we complained about, what Jameis did at Florida State and the fact he threw, interceptions, and that his first year he only threw 10, had 40 touchdowns and threw the 10 interceptions. Well, 10 interceptions in a college season is still way too many. That said, the next year he threw, I think it was 25 touchdowns and 18 interceptions.
Yeah.
So Jameis has a penchant for throwing interceptions wherever he has been. Again, that's his decision-making process. Now, he has a huge upside, and he can come through. We've seen it every year. He'll put together 4 or 5 games where he just is really impressive. And then, when he steps on something, he steps on it in a big way. And many times with the game on the line. So just saying.
All right. Good stuff. Thanks a lot. Once again, Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend, Mr. Al Keck. Thanks a lot for coming on the evolution of sports talk television. All right.
You got it, bud.
All right. There you go. So I had to get his thoughts on it because we're supposed to have Nick Sitro on. So we'll read your comments until he gets on. And then we'll take your calls. And if he does come on, we'll get him on. If he doesn't, then we'll go with his mock. But I really wanted to get him on, talk about this mock draft that he has. It's really interesting. If you trade for Joe Burrow, you still have to bring a bridge quarterback in so he can sit. Don't rush him in and let him sit at least a year. I'm sorry. If you trade up for Joe Burrow, he's your starter. Number 1 pick has got to be your starter. Whether it's right or wrong, you're giving up the future. You're giving up the present. For a quarterback to sit on the bench, no freaking way. If you're going all in on that, Joe Burrow has to start. All right, welcome to the Sports Web. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
It's Nick Sitro. How you doing?
Hey, there you go. There's my guest, Nick Sitro, newest Bucks report writer, an analytical writer. Wrote some really good articles on Jameis Winston and the Bucks in general. Really like his work, and I also like your mock draft. Last week you had the Bucks taking Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa. What changed this week? Who is the pick at number 14 for the Bucks, Nick?
So I went with Mekhi Becton this week. The way I do a lot of the mock drafts is I use the Draft Network mock machine there. I do a couple of them, and then I kind of come to a consensus. And Wirfs was actually going a lot higher in the recent ones, and he wasn't falling to the 14 spot. So I went with Mekhi Becton, who I actually like a lot. He's a huge player. I think he's 369 pounds. He's really good in the running game, which I think the Bucks obviously need a lot. And he has really deceptive sort of speed for his size. So I think he fits really well with what the Bucks are trying to do.
And you think that Wirfs will probably be going up somewhere because of the combine. And the combine is really difficult to look at this point because we got 2 weeks. But all you have to do is really, show out, especially as an offensive lineman and always being a need for every team. So you think Becton could be the player at number 14. What do you think his advantage over drafting Wirfs? Because a lot of people are on Tristan Wirfs. How does Becton compare to Wirfs as an offensive tackle?
I think Becton's a little bit better in the passing game. He has really incredible reach, so he can fight off edge defenders a lot better than Wirfs, I think. I think they match up pretty well in the running game. But I think he also does a little bit better at countering some of the inside moves Becton does over Wirfs. I mean, they're both elite players, though, at the top of the draft. I don't think you can really go wrong with either one, but those are just some things that I'm kind of seeing as I'm looking at some of the offensive tackles before the combine.
I talked about this before. Could you see an Andrew Thomas possibly slipping to number 14?
I don't know. I don't really see him falling that far. I know there was a couple mock drafts that I was looking through by some experts on ESPN and NFL Network that had him falling into the 20s, and I just don't see how that's possible. He's an elite option at the position. I just don't see how he gets out of the top 10, to be honest.
Is Thomas the best offensive lineman in this draft? And then give me your offensive line list here. Who do you think is top in this 2020 draft?
Yeah, I would say Thomas is probably one. You could argue Wirfs is 2, Becton 3. I mean, I need to wait to the combine to come out with a full sort of list there.
Mm-hmm. What about Jedrick
Jedrick Wills out of Alabama? I think you could argue is top 2. Austin Jackson out of USC, I think, is easily up in the top 5. But I think Andrew Thomas would easily be my number 1, probably followed by Wirfs.
All right, good stuff. And then your second round, who did you have here? Because it kind of changed from you were taking an offensive lineman, I believe. Last pick, you took a last mock draft, you took an offensive lineman, or was it somebody else?
Yeah, I believe I took an offensive lineman. I'm trying to remember between the second and first one. It might have been a running back, actually. But
yeah, I think
pretty much.
Yeah.
How I've been doing a lot of the mocks is I'll take sort of the best available offensive tackle or defensive lineman, and I just flip-flop first and second round because this draft, I think, it's so strong at those positions that if you wait too long, you're going to miss out at top-tier talent. So Raekwon Davis, I picked with the second-round pick here, and I was looking at a lot of his film from last year, and I think he would be next to Vita Vea. I think they'd be an incredible duo. He's a little bit more athletic, a little bit more shifty than Vea is, but he has a little bit less power. Some of his moves, his swim move and his rip move they're so violent in watching him rip through tackles like it's nothing. I do have some concerns about his production. So his sophomore year, he had 8.5 sacks. That went to 1.5, and then all the way down to half a sack last year. Mm-hmm. So that kind of worries me a little bit. But defensive tackles, I don't bring production too much into their draft stock. But I think with defensive ends, it matters a lot more.
And we're speaking with Nick Sitro, newest Bucks report writer, with his mock draft here on the evolution of Sports Talk Television. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. So, Davis, how does he compare in your eyes to a Kinlaw or Derek Brown? Because we've been talking about both of those players possibly falling to 14, namely Kinlaw. Brown and Kinlaw, and then Davis, in your opinion, or is there somebody else lurking?
No, I would probably put Derek Brown on top of the list there, and then Kinlaw second. I like Davis a lot, but I'd even put guys like the kid from TCU. I think is better, but he's still an elite option, sort of in the second round. I think Kinlaw is a polished day one starter, where Raekwon Davis, I think there were times when you watch the film where in play action passes, he kind of just sits at the line and he doesn't commit. It's almost like he's processing what's going on. And he kind of just gets stuck at the defensive line. He does a lot better when it's an obvious passing or rushing down than when it's kind of in the gray area. And I think guys like Kinlaw, they're much more decisive in the moves that they're making. And I think they're just an elite talent that you can't miss at the top of the draft. I think Kinlaw is easily a first-round pick. Derek Brown's easily a first-round pick. Raekwon Davis, I probably wouldn't take in the first. He'll probably, mid-second, late second, somewhere around there.
So the negative on him is that he takes off some plays and he doesn't process fast enough. He lets the running backs suck him in, right?
I wouldn't say he takes plays off. It's almost like he's processing the backfield, and it's a little bit too slow for what you'd like to see.
Okay.
He kind of just sits there and waits to see what hole the running back's going to run into, and then by that time he's too late. I think he's much better when he gets off the line, makes a decisive move, and he swallows up running backs in the backfield. But sometimes when you watch the play action, he'll think it's a run and kind of back off a little bit, and it doesn't translate well to passing down.
So
that's the only really knock I would have on him.
So basically, he's going to be weak on those RPO plays. So you're going to have to watch that and work on that. Okay, I got you. And we're with Nick Sitro here, newest Bucks report writer here on the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. We talked about offensive linemen. First, I want to get to your third round. You're taking Cam Akers again. This is the second week in a row. Do you think the Bucks would be interested in not only Akers, but taking a running back in the third round?
Yeah, so the more I think about Cam Akers, the less I really like the pick, to be honest with you. Okay. He's a lot like Ronald Jones. I don't dislike the player. I like Cam Akers a lot, but I think he's just too much of a north-south runner, similar to Ronald Jones, where it just doesn't really make sense for the fit of this team. Akers is definitely more polished in the passing game. I think he runs crisper routes than Ronald Jones. He definitely has better hands coming out of college. But the thing with Akers and Ronald Jones is they both struggle in pass protection. And I'm not sure that Bruce Arians wants to put up with that, to be honest. And all the FSU fans that are listening know that it was definitely a down year for the team.
Sure.
And their offensive line as a whole was really bad. So it's hard to tell if it was missed assignments. Sometimes it looked like Akers was expecting pressure from the inside and it would come outside, and sometimes vice versa. So he seems too much like a Ronald Jones type runner that I don't know what makes a lot of sense, especially since the coaching staff really harps on pass protection.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my difficulty. Look, if you don't believe in Jones, you drafted him second round because he can't pass protect. You're not going to draft another running back that can't pass protect. So out of this whole draft, I'm going to throw you a curveball here. Who's a running back that can do all three facets of the game that you would feel confident in that the Bucks could draft in the second or the third round this year?
I think DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, Jonathan Taylor. I mean, those are obviously the three elite guys that are going in the first round. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter and social media say, they should draft one of those three, and they're not going to fall to the third round. There's just no chance. I think they're late first, early second round guys. I think the kid out of LSU, Edwards-Helaire, he's a pretty good pass catcher. sometimes is you get some of that Sims running style from a couple years ago where he kind of bounces it in the hole a little bit. So I think once you get out of the elite sort of Swift, Dobbins, and Taylor, there is no other running back that's sort of you're going to get the full package in the third round. I know it's kind of a cop-out answer, but you're going to have to spend up on it if you want it.
Yeah, I'm wondering what about Anthony McFarland, not the broadcaster of Monday Night Football, the running back out of Maryland. He's had a lot of pub lately, so I'm wondering if he would be a player that the Bucs would be interested in, and maybe a LaMichael Perrine from Florida to keep our eyes on. Okay.
Yeah, I think the third round's a little tricky because I think it's really top-heavy in this draft. There's not a ton in like that third round that I would be willing to take based on a value standpoint. And then I think it kind of comes back into the fourth round where you could take an Benjamin. I like Zach Moss in the late third, early fourth round. Anthony McFarland, you mentioned out of Maryland, I think is a good pick in the fourth round. I think third would be a little bit too early, where I'd really only want to take Cam Akers or Edwards Hilaire in the third round for running back specifically.
I got you. And McFarland, his comp and what I've seen and seen the tape on him, his highlights, he certainly looks like a lot like Dalvin Cook. And I like Dalvin Cook. I like him a lot. I know he couldn't stay healthy with Minnesota. He's finally had an injury-free year, but he's very productive, can catch, can pass block. He's got that explosive nature about him. So I think that's somebody the Bucs may definitely look at. And we're on with Nick Sitro here, newest Bucs report writer on the Sports Web. You talked about offensive line and Becton. Let's say, look into our crystal ball here and say the Bucs decide to go into free agency. You wrote about this. You think the number one guy, and he's my guy, Jake Conklin out of Tennessee, looking at his passing grades, kind of went down in 17 and 18 because of the ACL injury. Do you think there's a real possibility the Bucs could sign him, or is he too rich for their blood?
So right now the Bucs have $84 million in cap space. If you sign Winston with the franchise tag, that's $27 million. If you sign Barrett, that's probably around another 20. So you're looking at about $35 million. And when I look at the Bucs free agents, I don't know that I want to re-sign Sue at his price tag or Nassib.
Okay.
JPP is kind of a wild card. He only made $5 million this year. So, I mean, you can kind of guesstimate after those free agents that they'll have about $30 million in cap space. And I think they can spend for one elite talent in free agency. And I think it needs to be offensive line. Jack Conklin probably would be around $15 million. Which I think they can. It's doable. If they don't want to bring back Will Golston, they can shave off $5 million. DeMar Dotson, I think his contract's not guaranteed. $10 million. I mean, so there's ways around the cap where you can get it done. The only thing is if you sign a tackle in free agency, I hope the Buccaneers aren't kind of straight away from drafting a tackle in the draft, because this class is just so deep at tackle. One of the things that I was thinking about today is if you sign a guard like Brandon Sheriff, Andres Pete, and move Kappa to right tackle, then you can go into the draft taking best available player in tackle or defensive line, and you can just have Kappa as sort of a backup swing tackle. I think that kind of makes a lot of sense.
And I kind of look at the possibility, and I've said this before on this show, where the Bucs could be aggressive, and if there is an Andrew Thomas on the board or Tristan Wirfs and they wanted to trade up and did not think he was going to get to 14, I think they would do that. I think this is the year they could do that, and I have no problem with that, because I feel like if you draft an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, you can't go wrong, right?
Yeah, I don't know that you have to trade up, though. I think you can sort of sit at 14 because you're going to have 3 to 4 quarterbacks go. Excuse me, you're going to have 3 to 4 quarterbacks go in the top 10. That's a given. You might have Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb go in the top 10. Chase Young's obviously going to go in the top 10, top 13. I mean, you've got guys that are going to go at other positions that I think you can sort of sit at 14 and just take the best, the player available. I don't think they need to trade up in this draft.
They may not, because the run on quarterbacks. You look at Justin Herbert, he's getting a lot of talk. You have Jordan Love out of Utah State. He's getting a lot of love, and maybe even a Jacob Eason. People turn on the film, they see the potential. You just never know. When teams get hungry for a quarterback, they do a lot of crazy things, and the Bucs have been a part of that with trading down with Buffalo, because Buffalo wanted Josh Allen. They got a couple picks, but I think this could be the year where they trade up. Let's talk about that free agency offensive lineman. We talked about Conklin. Greg Robinson is kind of interesting. You say he makes $10 to $12 million. He's traditionally a left tackle. Do you think the Bucs could look at him at right tackle?
Yeah, I think he can make an easy switch to right tackle. I think Robinson's sort of a cheaper alternative to Conklin if you're not willing to pay up at the position. He's 27 years old, so he's not reaching 30 yet. I think he's an alternative to Dotson. And even if you want to put Donovan Smith to right tackle, you can put Robinson at left tackle. There's a lot of different things you can do here that I think make a lot of sense. But I think he spent some time in college playing right tackle. I don't think he's done that in the NFL. So I would assume that before they sign him, they obviously have a plan in place.
Yeah, I mean, Andres Pete from the Saints, and I always talk about the Saints and what they do well. They've drafted offensive linemen, so now it's going to be a big year for them with the impending free agency of Bridgewater, Breeze, and, of course, the kid that everybody seems to like at this point. I can't think of his name right off the top of my head. Yes, him. So you're going to have to sign an offensive lineman. So I'm not sure if they're going to go and get Andres Pete, so he may be out there. And then Brandon Sheriff, this guy's not a bust. He just plays in a bad offense. Do you honestly think, and I read this in your article, that he could go under the radar, or is he going to get big-time money in free agency?
I think it's kind of tricky with him because he plays on a bad team, and he's had 3 significant injuries where he's landed on the IR the 2 straight years. So I don't know if his injury history is going to spook a lot of teams. I think it might drive his value down a little bit. But if he, works out with teams and his medicals check out fine, I think he could be one of the highest paid guards. It's just not a guarantee given. I think he tore his pec last year. He had an arm injury 2 years ago, and he landed on the IR both times. So a little bit shaky on the injury front.
All right, that's our Bucs Report analyst, draft analyst at this point. I'm going to call him, does great analytical articles here on Bucs Report. It's newest Bucs Report writer, Mr. Nick Sitro. Thanks a lot for joining the Sports Web, all right? By the way, real quick, what do you got coming out here in the next couple of days? Because you're always writing. What's next with you besides a mock draft?
I'll probably do a lot of articles on free agency. I'll probably do one on the salary cap as well, because I was looking through kind of what options are. And I think people, it's not really clear what kind of moves they can do with the salary cap. So I'll kind of write out a few options. But I'm really focused on the draft and free agency as we kind of move forward into the combine.
All right, stay available because we'll definitely have you back here on the evolution of Sports Talk Television. All right, boss?
All right, thanks for having me on. It's always fun.
Yeah, man, always fun here. Nick Sitro, newest Bucs Report writer. To me, he's an analyst, right? He knows his draft. He knows his stuff. That's what we get here on Bucs Report. We want to definitely hear from you. 813-699-5353, 813-699-5353. Coming up after the Sports Web, we'll have the Red Flag Podcast. Yes, a live show from Philip Schwegler and the newest co-host, Mr. Blake Anthony. There you go, the Blake Anthony Show. So we will be out of here by 11. No questions asked or sooner. All right, let's go out to the phone lines. Will, man, welcome to the evolution of Sports Talk Television.
What's going on, man?
What's going on with you?
I had so much good information tonight for us, man.
I mean, we've been bringing it the last
my brain's about to explode.
We've been full of
a lot of good info, a lot of good content. I'm gonna put my 2 cents. I've been doing a lot of thinking on it. Me and Johnny Dean, excuse me, we had a talk with Blake Anthony on his show on Monday, and he brought up a point, and I said, "Hey, that's pretty good idea, and everyone else has been kind of talking about it since then. So I don't know if they were listening to the show, but moving Kappa to right tackle, which, you know, has been brought up a few times since
Sure.
we actually talked about it. And I figure if you move Kappa over to right tackle, that just clears up some spots. And then because I'm dead set on wanting to draft Kinlaw.
Okay.
I really want this guy. So I'm thinking, okay, we draft Kinlaw at 14. And honestly, I like the guard, and I can't pronounce his last name to save my life. Tyler, we'll call it Tyler B.
Okay.
His last name starts with a B, from Wisconsin.
Baldasta.
If you can say his last.
I believe it's Baldista or something like that. Yeah. I've heard of him.
Yeah.
I'm familiar.
Big kid out of Wisconsin. Big farm boy from Wisconsin.
As a center or as a guard? Okay. I heard he was playing center.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
He can play guard and center, but if you put him at guard, and then you got Kappa on the right side, we don't need to sign Conklin. Like, I believe, like, if we sign Conklin, that's like 15 mil. You know what I mean?
Sure, but it's money
I'm trying to keep our defense. You know what I mean?
Well, look, I get it. I understand that, but you're not going to overpay for Sue. You're not going to overpay for Nassib. So you can always address that position in the draft. I'm saying that it basically eliminates you from being pigeonholed to draft a Worfs or Thomas or I'm not against it, but they may not be there. I mean, it's a deep draft.
Yeah.
And if you lose Sue, then to me, the defensive tackle is the spot where you have to go. It's either a Derek Brown, which I don't think it's going to be. Most likely the Panthers are going to zero in on him at 7, depending on what happens in the combine, or Kinlaw. Now, if it's a Kinlaw at 14, I have no problem with that, as long as you address the offensive line. And the way to do that, because you can do both. You don't have to address the offensive line. What you can do is either sign Sue or sign a defensive tackle in free agency, and then basically your defensive tackle spot is taken care of. Or you can let Sue go, address the defensive tackle and the draft, and get a free agent like a Jake Conklin. Now, I get it. It's $15 million, but it's not like he's a bum. Okay? He's not Anthony Collins.
Oh, no.
Right.
He's a stud.
Right.
He's a stud.
Right.
He's proven himself.
Correct.
My problem was, I read some article somewhere where someone said, "Oh, Sue's gonna want more money this year," and I'm like, dude, if he wants more money this year, he can walk.
Well, he may. I mean,
like, I'm just saying, if he wants more money this year, he can walk.
Well, he may want more money. He may want the same money he got last year, and you have to figure out if he's worth it. But you look at that on paper, and you look at the statistics. The Bucs were number 1 team versus the rush. So do you want to lose that?
Oh, yeah.
Because we know how important it is.
I think if it's about the same money or less, if it was less money, I would try and keep him.
Okay.
If it was like 6 mil, maybe 7, I would try and keep him.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be 6
but
or
if
7.
He's looking for
9 or 10.
But if he's looking for like 9 or 10, that boy can walk.
Well,
I'm sorry.
There may be a team out
he's
there.
He's getting up there.
Well, he's getting up there, but there'll
be a team that pays for him.
Sure. And you have to weigh that out. So that's why I say you're looking at all options. And by the way, I'm taking off one of those days during free agency. I think it's going to be March 18th from work. So we'll have wall-to-wall coverage here on the Sports Web. We'll be probably live here from RPB Studios, giving you the latest of what the Bucs are doing and around the NFL. We'll take your calls that day, and we'll try to get some guests on and try to break down some of the free agent signings or non-free agent signings or Bucs losses, because they have 19 free agents. You know, Greg Allman of The Athletic pointed it out today. Look at how many free agents are on the Bucs.
Yeah, we got a lot of free agents.
Yeah, it's not just the quarterback. I mean, it starts with the quarterback, but there's a lot of free agents, especially on this defensive line. So you've got to try to keep it intact as much as possible. Anything else, Will?
I think Nassib is going to go.
Okay.
I really think he's going to go. The only guy that a lot of people are not talking about that I think we need to hang on to is Minter. I think we can hang on to him for a mill or two.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be a big-time signing. I think he'll probably depth at this point. But he played well when
But yeah,
Devin White
he's
was
a
out.
depth guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
You need to plug the hole.
He's not going to cost you a
He's
lot
one
of
of those
money.
guys.
Right. That's why he's not being talked
Yeah,
about.
he's not going to cost a lot of money, but
No.
he's a depth guy, and I think he filled the holes when he needed to, and I think he's a guy we need to hang on to.
Okay. All right. Good
But
stuff, Will. Anything
That's
else?
just my opinion.
We love it. We love it here on the Sports Web, my friend. Thanks a lot for calling, all right?
All right, man. Have a good night.
There you go. Will, man, 813-699-5353, 813-699-5353. Let's go back out to the web heads here. Joe Burrow going to be the Bengals. That you would assume. It just depends on what the Bengals get. If they get 2 or 3 first-round picks, you got to listen. You do. You have to listen. I say we draft Kinlaw. You just said that. Herbert is going to be the Jaguars. Corey, I don't know what you're thinking here. He's not going to the Jaguars. Yeah, the Jaguars are not going to draft another quarterback. I'm sorry to tell you. I mean, they have Gardner Minshew. Nick Foles signed into that money. He may get cut. He may be out there, but I don't think so. I think the Jaguars are going to let those two guys fight it out. I don't think they're drafting a quarterback. Sorry. You can look at other things. Do you think we get Teddy Bridgewater? I don't know. I don't know. Welcome to the Sports Web. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, what's going on, Pete? It's Ron.
Oh, what's going on, Ron? How you doing? Welcome.
I'm doing good, Pete. I'm doing really good. I know I could see as soon as you saw my name earlier, he's like, hey, that's Ron serving in Okinawa. I'm like, yeah, Pete knows he recognizes my name pretty well.
Yeah, man, I do. We've had some good conversations off here. And again, I really appreciate your service to the country. I have nothing but respect for you because, like I said before, I was in Marine Corps boot camp, didn't make it all the way through, went through 2 times, 20 weeks, couldn't shoot an M16 on a broken ankle. It's a true story. 32 times. I was not meant to be a Marine, so I definitely double dog, have an appreciation for a fellow Marine out there protecting my rights to do shows like this. So go ahead.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah, I've always looked at it. I didn't really know how to, when people give me comment, hey, thank you for your service. So I can let you know, I just have a long Williams family myself that served, and I just think they went through so much worse than what the more, common day military is. But that's just me, though. I just take it as a job as risky like anything else. I think all our civil service guys are folks that put their lives at risk every day.
Ron,
deserve the utmost respect.
Ron, we're kind of losing you here. We're kind of losing you here on the phone line. Is there any place you can go where it's a better phone? Because we're kind of losing you here. It's kind of spotty. Do you have another way or another? Let me see.
Can you hear me now better, Pete?
It's kind of going in and out. I don't know what's going on there, Ron.
Yeah, it's probably my calling app, but I can call back.
Yeah, call back. Yeah, get a better signal because we can't really hear what you want to say, and I don't want to have constant popping. So Ron, definitely call back. All right, boss.
Hell yeah, will do, Pete. Thanks,
right,
brother.
Yeah. I just can't. I can't deal with it, man. I can't. I love to hear from what he has to say, but I can't understand him. It's like listening to a mumble rap song or any song in pop music. I can't understand it. And it's frustrating because I want to understand, but I can't understand. 813-699-5353. 813-699-5353. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. Let's look at these comments here, and then we'll get back, and hopefully he calls back because we will be off air by 11 tonight. Red Flag Podcast coming up with Philip Schwagler and, of course, Blake Anthony, the new co-host of the Blake Anthony Show on Blake and Blake Sports. Congratulations, my friend. All right. It seemed like a lot of interceptions came from receivers not running the right routes. What's your thoughts on that? It's irrelevant. It's absolutely a astute point. And a lot of people don't look at it, but they should. And it's been broken down in other articles. And I'm not going to mention the platform, but he did a good job on it. So go look at it. Go look at the All-22 if you want to. Because it was wide receivers. And even Coach Arians mentioned it during the Tennessee game. Am I saying every interception was on a wide receiver or a running back or the offensive line? No. Winston has his fair share of problems, but it doesn't help when your wide receivers are not in the right places to catch the ball. Fair? It doesn't help when your offensive line doesn't give you enough time or you don't have a running game. We went through this. So yes, David, absolutely. I do think it's certainly possible that the wide receivers ran wrong routes, and it's bound to happen because it's such a confusing system. And you have to adapt and overcome. Marine Corps statement. I don't think we're going to be able to re-sign all the defensive linemen and believe defensive linemen will be what we select at 14 with linemen in rounds 2 or 3. Certainly possible. I mentioned it. I mean, you look at a draft where you can go into and get an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman or a defensive end. This is the year. Wide receivers and running backs in this year's draft are pretty good. It's a very, very talent-rich draft. So the Bucs are going to have some opportunities. So they may not trade up, but they may. That's my opinion. I think they trade up. All right, welcome back to the Sports Web. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Pete, it's Ron again. Is that a better connection?
Much better. I can hear you now. All right, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, Pete, earlier, by the way, it was a great show.
Thank you.
In addition there with Al Keck.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, covered a lot of good stuff. Enjoyed listening to you guys. And just so I know, when you kind of first started off, it was just kind of like, yeah, that's Ron, from Okinawa. He's not the best of Winston fan. I just want to clarify, Pete. I'm a fan, so I guess I support the Bucs no matter what. I'll always be a fan. Growing up there originally, I've always kept my homage, and respect to them. So it doesn't really matter who is on the team. But my thing is let's face it, the quarterback is the most important, spot on the team. I mean, that's the anchor of your offense. And people can say what they will, but what I want to clarify is it's not a personal vendetta. It's nothing. It's like just dislike Winston. I want to see him successful.
Okay.
But there comes a time. I mean, when you lead the league, and since 2015, with the amount of turnovers that he has, my thing is that for any organization, Pete, the ultimate goal is to, well, for us, it should be a building block. I mean, but anything, the ultimate goal for any organization is to win a championship, to win a ring. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we haven't even been in the playoffs since 2007, and obviously all of us Bucs fans know that it hasn't been easy, and so we are more in a situation where we want to win and we want to see a change. And so I think in some regards we've seen a change, but I mean, we still haven't had a winning season. I mean, I think the last winning season was 2016, Pete, when we went 9-7.
Yeah. Yes.
And so my thing is just that, when you throw 30 interceptions, 7 interceptions for pick sixes, I mean, that's not a recipe to win football games. And now, I know that it's a team sport and you can't place the blame all on one player. I mean, Jameis hasn't had a consistent group of coaching staff that has remained in Tampa. That's been another issue that's plagued the organization. Mm-hmm. And, maybe the running game hasn't always been up to par, the offensive line, and certainly not the defense. But I think, considering the last, couple years, and especially this past season, just to speak on, where we did see flashes of the running game, and we certainly saw improvement. I mean, let's face it, the defense was not good, Pete. The first half of the season last year, I mean,
not at
you
all.
Can't put all the blame on any one player.
Correct.
In all fairness.
Agree.
Secondary was horrid.
Mm-hmm.
But, I had confidence in Todd Bowles' system and that they were going to play hard on him. And I mean, they did. And we saw a big time turnaround and a vast improvement of what this team, I think, really was. I think the whole time we had talent and we had the ability. We just, we're just beating ourselves at certain times. And, but even in saying that, even when our defense turned around, we still saw the propensity for the constant turnovers. And that's what concerns me, Pete, is getting back to the original. Your goal is to win a ring. Mm-hmm. And for ours, it should be getting to the playoffs. And I'm just not so sure that we can do that.
Let me ask you this, Ron.
You turn the ball over.
Let me ask you this. If you have a choice to get a quarterback out of this free agent market, because I ask everybody this all the time, and I'm going to be very analytical on this and very respectful. Who would you take? Do you think Phillip Rivers is an upgrade over Jameis Winston?
Oh man, that's a tough one, but yeah, you had to give me a tough one, Pete.
Of course.
Well,
38 years
I don't know
old,
if I can say it's an upgrade, Pete. Now, I would say it would be an upgrade if Phillip Rivers was not as close to pretty much the latter part of his career, in which he is. I mean, Phillip Rivers has had 6 playoff appearances, I believe, in 14 seasons. So not instrumental, nothing great.
Sure.
I don't think they've advanced past the first round. I'd have to look more back into that to get the specifics on that. But
okay, so
this is a quarterback who has been to the playoffs.
Is that a no or
a
yes?
Mean,
Will you take him over Winston? See, right there, that tells me, right there, that silence tells me everything I need to know. All right, let's move on. Tom Brady.
Do I take Tom Brady? Yeah, I mean, I would take Tom Brady, but I mean, I just don't think it's a realistic thing that he's going to come to Tampa.
You think he works behind this offensive line in this offense?
No, I would have to say that, Tom Brady pretty much thrived in the environment he was in New England. I mean, because it was a constant. I mean, the consistency with the offensive line.
Okay.
The improvements on defense, the receivers he had. I mean, the running game. Yeah, I mean, Tom Brady is I mean, let's face it, he's not a mobile quarterback. So behind a questionable or patchwork offensive line, I don't think Tom Brady would be the same as everyone's seen, the Tom Brady that we've seen.
Oh, there you go. All right.
That's just me, Pete.
All right. No. I like the point. I like that. And we're talking with Ron here, former Marine, here on the Sports Web, a fan's perspective. And I like this. I like this little debate. All right. Cam Newton, you want him? Your silence is speaking volumes, Ron.
I mean, it's just kind of tough questions because it's like they're all good athletes and they all have their strengths and they all have their weaknesses. I mean, right. I would say there wasn't much upside to Cam. He's athletic, he's big, but he's coming off of that injury. So, is that really? I don't think that. To me, I would not.
You would not go after him.
I don't know.
All right, Ron.
I don't think
Teddy Bridgewater.
No.
Okay, mark that off.
No.
Drew Brees, if he happens to get out. Drew Brees in the Bucs offense in the line there.
Well, who wouldn't want Drew Brees? I mean,
wait a minute now. Now he's in the Saints offense. Do you think he works in this offense?
It's really tough to say, Pete. I mean, these are kind of. I mean, we all know that every quarterback you mentioned, all are excellent quarterbacks. I mean,
right, but
they all have their attributes, and
sure.
Now bringing them to Tampa, that's a different thing. I don't think Tom Brady's coming. I don't think Cam Newton would be the prototypical quarterback for a BA system.
Mm-hmm.
Brees.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, we have great receivers. So
how about the greatness of Andy Dalton? You want Andy Dalton?
No.
Ryan Fitzpatrick?
No. Ryan Fitzpatrick, well, to bring Ryan Fitzpatrick back?
I'm just saying.
I don't know about that.
Do you want him back? I mean, he went 1-4. He's an inconsistent quarterback. He also has problems with interceptions. What about
we've seen
right? What about a rookie quarterback?
Yes.
You want a rookie?
I mean, Pete, I say that you can't go wrong bringing in. There's different options you could go here. I mean, you bring in a free agent, and then you draft a quarterback to learn under that free agent. Mm-hmm. I like Justin Herbert myself.
But do you think Justin Herbert is going to come into this offense, and do you think that he'll thrive? Because knowing what we know here, Ron, about quarterbacks that are in the first year of Bruce Arians' system, even from Carson Palmer, they throw a lot of interceptions. Andrew Luck did it. Ben Roethlisberger did it. Peyton Manning did it. Do we test that out? I mean, what if you bring in a bridge quarterback and you have worse results on offense than you had last year?
Yeah, I mean, I understand it's a valid concern to have. And but it kind of goes on the other side, is that it's the unknown. I mean, we don't know. And
unknown,
from
right.
a franchise standpoint, you have to make the best decision based on what the scenario is and what you currently have. My thing, Pete, is that I wish the best for Winston, but my thing is I don't think we are going to see a drastic change, or we're going to see enough of a change for a 16 game season of consistency to where, I mean, he hasn't shown me enough to say that he's not going to cut the turnovers significantly enough to win football games. I just think that Jameis too. I think part of it is an inability and an issue to read defenses.
Well, Ron, what about this?
For what they're trying to do. I mean, a lot of his interceptions, people can say what they want about whose fault it was.
Sure.
More fault it was. But, Pete, I just think that I've watched a lot of it and dissected a lot of his interceptions, and there was a lot of them to me that were clearly his fault.
Okay, so you're in the bunker right now. All right, you got your M16. You're ready to go. Who are you shooting for here? Who's your quarterback? You haven't given me You haven't given me a choice, and this is my point of what I've said before, and it goes back to what Trent Dover said. The best option at this point seems like it's Jameis Winston, and this is what I'm hearing from a lot of fans. Fans want to debate me, and I give them the opportunity to do that, and then I ask you about the quarterbacks, and you're not sure. So who's the guy you're shooting for on March 18th for the Bucs, if it's not Winston?
I mean, like I said, I like the Justin Herbert. I like the Herbert kid.
So you think a rookie quarterback's going to come in here and win about 10 or 11 games?
Well, I mean, I'm not going out on a limb and saying that, Pete, but I mean, like, he's just a rookie. Can any rookie really come in right away and, just, light it up and bring your team to, to 9, 10, 11 wins in playoffs? I don't think a lot of us can say that.
Ron,
but I just like his.
You started off the call by saying that you're not as patient because you haven't had a winning season, haven't been to the playoffs in 2007. In your heart of hearts at this point, do you think yourself, along with the Bucs fan base, could wait another year to get to the playoffs? Or do you give Jameis Winston another year to develop in this offense? And then if he doesn't, then you can cut your ties, draft a rookie.
I'm not against giving Winston another year, with the whole. But see, for me, Pete, I just have a different perspective. Like Carson Palmer, I know a lot of fans have brought that up because a lot of us heard the interview. We saw the context of the interview, and that he feels that he went through a similar situation where he threw interceptions, and the second year in BA system, he was an improved quarterback. But I mean, that's Carson Palmer. I mean, we're two different type quarterbacks here.
Well, this is a quarterback that had a little bit, he's a little bit up there in age. He's seen a little bit more systems and had some success. But this was the Carson Palmer who went to the Raiders and was basically left for dead. And then he goes to Bruce Arians' offense, and Bruce Arians basically brings him back alive. But he had his bumps in the road. Now, I know what Ben Cornett's going to say. He threw less interceptions in the second half instead of the first half of the season. But also, and let me ask you this, knowing what we know, and this is just a report from Jameis 1 of 1, he says that not only Jameis has gotten corrective eye surgery during the offseason, but he also played through a torn meniscus knee, and we know he played through a fractured thumb. With that all being put out there, do you have a difference of opinion of Jameis Winston as the quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2020?
I mean, Pete, as far as playing through the thumb injury, I even gave him, because I remember I was actually at that game. I happened to have been in town at the time when I went to the Colts game.
Sure.
And I thought that was just a tremendous display of resiliency that Winston showed when he, came back, thumb was taped up, and came in and after Griffin came in for a series or two and did an excellent job. My issue is just the consistency. We haven't seen the consistency. And what is it that tells me? I mean, can we hang our hat on what Carson Palmer says? Can we hang our hat on, that if you bring in someone else, or do you give them another year? It's just kind of a lot of unknowns. I'm just going off of it. It's nothing personal. Of course, I don't want to see Winston succeed. I just see that weaknesses in the area of turning the ball over, decision making, not reading defenses, holding on to the ball too long. Something that we shouldn't be seeing, 30 interceptions in a season, in your fifth season. You should be improving, not regressing.
Well,
but
that's a fair point, but you're also in a new offense with the propensity, Leo Word, to throw a lot of interceptions in that first year offense. And then on top of it, you finally have a coach. So I get what you're saying, but from this conversation,
but let's face it, Pete, this is nothing new though. He's been since his college days. It's been a turnover.
It's kind of new because Ron, he only averaged 14 and a half interceptions after this year, and only averaged 378 times he threw the ball. He threw the ball 257 more times. And what's the one or two things he's never had for this offense? An offensive line and a running game. I'm curious to see if you give him a running game and a David Johnson or somebody that's proven, and an offensive line, to see what happens. And then if you absolutely exhaust all that effort into doing that and he still is the same quarterback like he was last year, then I'm okay with moving on. But at this point, from this conversation here, and you can listen to it, it certainly sounds like to me Jameis Winston is the best option, right?
I don't know, man. I agree, Pete, with what I'm you're not going to get me on saying he's the best option. I mean,
well, you could.
But I'm not against, another year. Okay. Cause it is the second year in BA system. See how he does. But I do think that and I wanted to bring this up. You have to have a plan B of attack and bringing in someone else, whether you draft someone or bring in a reliable quarterback, that in the event that, hey, Winston's just not cutting it and you have to pull him. I mean, you need to, it's just something to consider. It's something that the team needs to think about. It's just so many things. I just think the Winston thing is out of hand, Pete. Like, some people, it's getting to the point where it's not a team thing. Everyone takes it as an attack on Winston.
I agree.
And it's not that. I mean, it's just like, that's why it's kind of like sometimes you ever felt that way, Pete, where you're like, man, I'm going to be hesitant to comment on certain things in sports or politics because it never seems, kind of never seems to end well.
Let's just put it out there. Winston, you either like him or you hate him. There's no in between. I try to be someone in between, but for me, it's more about the potential and about the team stability. And I got to wrap it up. We'll have to get you back on the show. But once again, thanks a lot for first and foremost being a Devil Dog Marine Corps. Hoorah. And also thanks a lot for protecting this country and supporting the sports web. All right, my friend?
Yeah, I do appreciate it, Pete. It was great. It was great talking to you, and great show. Go Bucks.
All right.
And go Lightning.
There you go. Go Lightning. There you go. Go Bucks. I like it. So, yeah, technology just said, you know what? We're going to go. So, on that note, thanks a lot for tuning in. YouTube and Twitter. And I'm Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. Have a good night. Sports Web, a sports talk show for the hardcore fan. Bring your passion, bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense.